You signed this yourself, Jessica.
The marble countertop in our kitchen had a crack running through it like a lightning bolt frozen in stone. I noticed it every morning while making coffee, watching it spread a little wider each day. Kind of like my marriage to Jessica, really. Beautiful on the surface, rotten underneath, and getting worse by the hour. "You're burning the toast again, Dan," Jessica said without looking up from her phone. She sat at our breakfast bar in her perfectly pressed real estate blazer, thumbs flying across the screen with the intensity of a teenager flirting with her boyfriend. Which, as I'd recently discovered, wasn't far from the truth. "Sorry, honey," I said, scraping the charcoal off the bread. Guess I was distracted thinking about how much I love our morning conversations. Shields. She didn't catch the sarcasm. Jessica Hart, top realtor in Briarwood's most exclusive neighborhoods, had many talents. Detecting irony wasn't one of them. Our daughter Nina wandered into the kitchen, earbuds dangling around her neck like electronic jewelry. At 16, she had that particular teenage ability to see everything while pretending to notice nothing. "Dad's being sarcastic again," she announced to no one in particular. "Your father thinks he's funny," Jessica muttered, still typing. Her phone buzzed with an incoming message, and I watched her face light up like Christmas morning. Definitely not a client inquiry about split-level ranches. "Who's texting you so early?" I asked, knowing I'd hate the answer. "Just work stuff." She slipped the phone into her purse with the practiced smoothness of a magician palming a card. "I'll be late tonight. Big listing presentation." "Another one? That's the 4th this week. Behavior is booming, Dan. Some of us have careers that actually matter." There it was, the daily dig about my transition from investigative journalist to freelance copywriter. Sure, writing ad copy for local businesses wasn't exactly Pulitzer material, but it paid the bills and let me work from home. Plus, it gave me plenty of time to notice things, like how Jessica's late nights had increased dramatically over the past 3 months. Like how she'd started buying expensive lingerie she never wore around me. Like how she'd suddenly developed an interest in wellness retreats, run by a sleazy ex-football player named Victor Sloan. Tyler, our 13-year-old, shuffled in wearing yesterday's clothes, and that glazed expression kids get from too much screen time. "Mom, can you drive me to school? My bike has a flat tire." "She asked your father. I'm busy." Jessica grabbed her coffee and headed for the garage, heels clicking against the hardwood like a countdown timer. "Love you too, sweetheart," I called after her. The garage door slammed in response. Nina rolled her eyes. "You two are so weird." "Weird how?" "Before. Like, you pretend everything's fine, but it's obviously not. It's like watching a sitcom where nobody told the actors it was supposed to be funny." Smart kid. Too smart, maybe. I ruffled her hair, which she tolerated with the patience of someone humoring a mentally deficient relative. "Everything's fine, Nina. Your mom and I are just adjusting to some changes." "Is that what you call it when she comes home smelling like another guy's cologne?" My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. "What?" "I'm not stupid, Dad. She's been acting weird for months. Late nights, secret phone calls, new clothes. Plus, Mindy's mom told Mindy that Mom's been hanging out with some guy who owns a yoga studio or something." Mindy was Nina's best friend, and Mindy's mom was Paige Chen, one of Jessica's closest friends and the neighborhood's unofficial gossip coordinator. If Paige was talking, it meant the whole social circle knew. "Nina, you shouldn't—" I know. It's not my business. But Dad?" She looked at me with those serious brown eyes that reminded me of my own mother. "You deserve better." Before I could respond, she grabbed her backpack and headed out to catch the school bus. Tyler followed, mumbling something about his video game tournament after school. And then I was alone, in our perfect kitchen with its cracked marble and its atmosphere of polite deception. I poured another cup of coffee and sat down at the counter, staring at that crack. In journalism school, they taught us that every story has a breaking point. The moment when all the careful lies and hidden truths come crashing down. I had a feeling mine was coming soon. My phone buzzed. A text from Miles Garrett, my neighbor, and probably my only real friend left in Briarwood. Coffee later? Got some interesting news about your wife's new hobby. Michelle was a retired cop with a dry sense of humor and a talent for noticing things that didn't add up. If he had interesting news, it probably wasn't the kind that would improve my morning. I texted back. Define interesting. The kind that explains why Victor Sloan's red Audi has been parked at the Marriott every Tuesday and Thursday for the past month. I stared at the message, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. Tuesday and Thursday were Jessica's late listing presentation days. Meet me at Brewster's in an hour, I typed. Bring tissues, came the reply, and maybe a lawyer's business card. Wilson set the phone down and looked around our kitchen. Granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, family photos arranged just so. The perfect suburban dream, cracked right down the middle. Time to find out just how deep those cracks went. Brewster's Coffee House sat on Briarwood's main street like a caffeinated oasis in a desert of strip malls and chain restaurants. It was the kind of place where soccer moms planned charity events and retired executives held court over endless refills. Miles was already there when I arrived, occupying a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. Old cop habits. "You look like heck," he said by way of greeting. "Thanks. You always know just what to say to make a guy feel better." Miles Garrett was 62, built like a fire hydrant, and had the kind of weathered face that suggested he'd seen everything twice and hadn't been impressed either time. He'd moved to Briarwood after retiring from the Boston PD, claiming he wanted peace and quiet. What he'd gotten was a front-row seat to suburban dysfunction. "So," I said, settling into the chair across from him. Victor Sloan, he agreed, sliding a manila folder across the table. Also known as the biggest piece of crap to ever peddle overpriced yoga classes to desperate housewives. Inside were printed photos, clearly taken with a telephoto lens, showing Jessica's BMW parked next to a red Audi in the Marriott parking lot. Timestamps showed they were taken on various days over the past month. "How did you?" Rick works hotel security. Asked him to keep an eye out after I noticed some interesting patterns in the neighborhood traffic. I flipped through the photos, my stomach sinking with each one. There was Jessica, walking into the hotel with a tall, athletic guy in expensive workout clothes. There they were coming out 2 hours later, her hair slightly mussed, his hand on her lower back. "Jesus, Miles. How long have you known?" "Spected for about 6 weeks. Confirmed for 2. I was trying to figure out how to tell you without sounding like a creepy stalker. And you decided on bring tissues as your opening gambit?" I've never been good with the touchy-feely stuff. I studied the photos more carefully. Victor Sloan looked exactly like what Central Casting would order for sleazy wellness guru. All white teeth and fake tan, with the kind of carefully maintained stubble that required more grooming products than most women owned. "Tell me about this guy." Miles pulled out his phone and scrolled through some notes. Victor Anthony Sloan, age 44, owns Mindful Body Wellness Center on Elm Street. Divorced twice, currently separated from wife number 3. Claims to be a certified yoga instructor, life coach, and intimacy counselor. Whatever the heck that means. Intimacy counselor, reconnect with their passion, for $300 an hour. So he's basically a prostitute with business cards. Threatening to prostitutes. At least they're honest about what they're selling. I closed the folder, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. How did I miss this? I'm supposed to be observant. It was literally my job for 15 years. You missed it because you nissed it because you never finally. Let's try in this just. Know that you missed it, much from everything defined them to live it. I closed the folder feeling like I'd been punched. I missed it unless you missed it because you trusted your wife. That's not stupidity, Dan. That's marriage. Was marriage. Past tense. Miles leaned back in his chair.
"What are you going to do?" Good question. Good question.
The old me, the investigative journalist me, would have dug deeper, gathered more evidence, built an airtight case before making any moves. But the new me, the tired, middle-aged copywriter me, just wanted to go home and pretend none of this was happening. I don't know, confront her? Hire a lawyer? Burn down his yoga studio? Insleed skipped the arson. Too messy, and orange really isn't your color. New line. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. I showed Miles the message. He snorted. Working late. Right, I bet she is. The kids know something's up. Nina called me out on it this morning. Smart kid. She gets that from you. Menstrual. Yeah, well, apparently I'm not smart enough to keep my wife interested. Miles leaned forward, his expression serious. Listen to me, Dan. This isn't about you. This is about Jessica making crappy choices. You didn't drive her into another man's arms. She drove herself there. Relinquished, 6. Then why do I feel like such a failure? Because you're human. And because 20 years of marriage doesn't just disappear overnight, even when it should. We sat in silence for a moment, watching the morning crowd cycle through their caffeine rituals. Soccer moms in yoga pants, business types checking their phones, retired folks reading newspapers and complaining about everything. Normal people living normal lives, blissfully unaware that their neighbor's world was falling apart over coffee and photographic evidence. There's something else, Miles said eventually. More photos? No. Information. About Victor's business practices. Shortcomings. He pulled out another folder, thicker than the first. Rick's girlfriend works at the bank. Apparently, Mr. Mindful Body has some interesting financial habits. Cash deposits that don't match his reported income. Payments to some questionable businesses. And get this. 3 different women have filed complaints with the Better Business Bureau about his counseling methods. What complaints? The kind that suggest his intimacy counseling involves more intimacy than counseling, if you catch my drift. Christians. I caught it all right. And suddenly, my wife's affair felt like part of a much bigger picture. So he's running some kind of scam? Like it. The question is whether Jessica's a victim or an accomplice. That stopped me cold. I'd been thinking of her as my cheating wife, not as someone potentially involved in criminal activity. But then again, I'd also thought of her as faithful. So clearly my judgment wasn't exactly reliable. What do you think I should do? Firefox finished his coffee and stood up. I think you should go home and look through her stuff. Carefully. See what else you might have missed. That feels like snooping. Testosterone. Dan, she's screwing another man in a hotel room twice a week. The time for respecting privacy has passed. He was right, of course. But 20 years of marriage had trained me to respect certain boundaries, even when those boundaries had already been crossed from the other side. And if I find something, then you'll know what you're really dealing with, and you can decide how you want to handle it. I gathered up the folders, feeling their weight in my hands. Evidence of betrayal, printed in glossy color. The kind of story I used to write about other people's lives. Miles, thanks. For this, it couldn't have been easy. Not this is easy, Dan, but you deserve to know. I walked back to my car, folders tucked under my arm like toxic homework. The morning sun was bright and cheerful, completely inappropriate for the mood. Birds were singing, flowers were blooming, and somewhere across town, my wife was probably planning her next rendezvous with Victor Sloan. Time to do some investigating of my own. The house felt different when I got home, like a crime scene waiting to be discovered. Every room held potential evidence. Every drawer might contain secrets. I'd lived here for 8 years, but suddenly, it felt like enemy territory. I started with the obvious places. Jessica's home office was a shrine to her real estate success. Awards on the walls, client testimonials, photos of her shaking hands with happy homeowners. Her desk was obsessively organized. Every pen in its place, every file labeled and sorted. Too organized, actually. In my experience, people who kept their public spaces this pristine usually had chaos hidden somewhere else. I checked her desk drawers first. Business cards, notepads, the usual office supplies. Then I found something interesting. A second phone charger, the kind that came with iPhones. But Jessica carried a Samsung. Interesting, I muttered, pocketing the charger. Her computer was password protected, of course. I tried the obvious combinations. Birthdays, anniversaries, the kids' names. Nothing. Then I remembered something Mina had said about Jessica's new interest in wellness and tried Mindful 2023. Dissert screen unlocked. Jesus, Jess, at least try to be subtle about it. Relinquer's browser history was clean. Too clean. Someone had been deleting their tracks, but they'd missed the Save Passwords folder, which contained logins for several sites I didn't recognize. One was called discreetconnections.com. I clicked on it and immediately regretted it. Discreet Connections was a website for married people looking for affairs. Jessica's profile was still active, complete with photos I'd never seen, and a bio that described her as adventurous and looking for excitement. Her username was BriarwoodBabe39. I stared at the screen, feeling something twist in my chest. It was one thing to suspect your wife was having an affair. It was another to see her advertising for it online, like she was selling a house. Her message history showed conversations with dozens of men over the past 6 months. Most were brief exchanges that went nowhere. But one thread with Wellness Warrior 44 was extensive. Victor Sloan, obviously. I scrolled through their messages, each one feeling like a small knife wound. Wellness Warrior 44. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. You're incredible. Raining.htm, Briarwood Babe 39. Dan's working late again. We could meet at the usual place. Wellness Warrior 44. I have something special planned for you. Wear that black dress. Selfish Briarwood Babe 39. The one Dan bought me for our anniversary? Perfect. I closed the laptop before I could read any more. I closed the laptop of Lot before I've spected with. I consider them. I've stepped through their long. I consider them that I've spent them. I consider them. The two of them. I consider them government the nother world and the farther world. I closed the laptop the 3 years. There's only so much self-torture a man can handle in one morning. My phone rang. Jessica's ringtone. Fleetwood Mac's Don't Stop Believin'. The irony wasn't lost on me. Hey, honey, I answered, trying to sound normal. Hi, I forgot to mention. I'm having lunch with Mindy and Paige today. Girl talk. You know how it is. Sure, where are you eating? New place on Elm Street. Sage something. Sage Bistro was 3 doors down from Victor's Wellness Center. Sounds nice. Say hi to the girls for me. I will. Oh, and Dan? I might be even later tonight. This new client is very demanding. I bet he is. What? I said I bet it is. The situation, I mean. Demanding situations are tough. Right. Anyway, I should go. Love you. She hung up before I could respond. Just as well. I wasn't sure I could have said it back without choking. I continued my search, moving to our bedroom. Jessica's dresser revealed the expensive lingerie Nina had mentioned. Stuff I'd never seen her wear. Tags still attached to some pieces, which meant they were either very new or being saved for special occasions. Occasions that apparently didn't include me. The closet was next. Hidden behind her winter coats, I found a small overnight bag I didn't recognize. Inside were toiletries, a change of clothes, and a manila envelope. The envelope contained photos, not the kind Miles had taken. These were professional headshots of various men, with handwritten notes on the back. Phone numbers, ratings, apparently Jessica scored her conquests, and comments like, good for dinner, or too clingy. Smith, the photo was there, rated 9 out of 10, with a note that said, excellent stamina, generous with gifts. Hard on the bed, envelope in my lap. This wasn't just an affair. This was a system. Jessica had turned cheating into a hobby, complete with documentation and performance reviews. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop looking or you'll regret it. I stared at the message, feeling my blood turn cold. Someone knew I was snooping. But who? And how? I walked to the window and peered through the blinds. The street looked normal. Kids playing, neighbors working in their yards, mail truck making its rounds. But somewhere out there, someone was watching. Another text arrived. Check your email. I grabbed my laptop and logged into my personal account. There was a new message from an anonymous sender with the subject line, "For your eyes only." Exclamation point, the less. The email contained a single video file. I clicked play and immediately wished I hadn't. The video showed Jessica and Victor in what was clearly a hotel room. They were doing exactly what you'd expect two people having an affair to do in a hotel room. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that they were talking about me. "He's so clueless," Jessica was saying, her voice clear despite the grainy video quality. "I could probably bring you home for dinner and he'd just ask if you wanted seconds." Firefox, without laughed. "Poor bastard. Does he really not suspect anything?" Dan? God, no. He's too busy writing copy for car dealerships to notice what's happening in his own house. Besides, he's gotten so boring. No ambition, no passion. It's like being married to a piece of furniture. What about the kids? They'll adjust. Kids are resilient, and honestly, they'll probably be better off without his constant negativity around. I slammed the laptop shut, hands shaking with rage. It was one thing to cheat on me. It was another to mock me while doing it. But involving the kids in her plans? That crossed a line I didn't even know existed. My phone rang again. Unknown number. "Hello? Did you enjoy the show?" The voice was electronically distorted, like something from a bad thriller movie. "Who is this?" "Someone who thinks you deserve to know the truth about your wife." "What do you want?" "I you to stop being a victim and start being a man. Jessica's been playing you for months, Dan. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know." "Well, you'd better figure it out, because this is just the beginning. Your wife has made a lot of enemies, and some of them are getting impatient." The line went dead. I sat in my bedroom, surrounded by evidence of my wife's betrayal, holding a phone that had just delivered a threat from a stranger. 24 hours ago, my biggest problem was burned toast. Now, I was apparently caught in the middle of something much bigger and more dangerous. My hands were still shaking as I gathered up all the evidence. Photos, envelope, overnight bag. I needed to think, to plan, to figure out what the heck was happening to my life. But first, I needed to call Miles, because something told me I was going to need all the help I could get. Miles answered on the first ring, like he'd been expecting my call. "That was fast. Find something interesting?" "Interesting doesn't begin to cover it. Can you come over? And Miles, bring your tool." "My tool? Dan, what the heck did you find?" "Just come over. I'll explain everything." 20 minutes later, Miles was sitting in my kitchen, examining the evidence I'd spread across the counter, like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle from heck. The photos, the overnight bag, the computer screenshots, everything that proved my marriage was not just over, but had been a lie for months. "Son of a witch," he muttered, studying the ratings Jessica had written on the back of the photos. "She turned cheating into a science project." He pulled a file out of his anonymous video in the phone call. Miles's expression darkened. "Someone's playing games with you, Dan. The question is why?" "They want to help me?" "Nobody sends anonymous videos to help. They do it to manipulate or threaten or blackmail." He picked up one of the photos, a headshot of a guy I didn't recognize. "Did you recognize any of these other men?" "Few. That one's Tom Bradley. He runs the hardware store. That's Mike Chen, Paige's husband." "Mitch Chen? Paige's husband, Mike Chen?" "Yeah, why?" Miles was quiet for a moment, studying the photo. "Because Paige was one of the people who told you about Jessica's affair, right? Through Nina?" "Right. She told her daughter, who told Nina, who told me." "So either Paige doesn't know her husband's cheating with your wife, or she's playing some kind of game." The possibility hadn't occurred to me, but it made sense, in a twisted way. "You think Paige is behind the anonymous messages?" "I think someone with inside knowledge is jerking your chain, and Paige would definitely qualify." My phone buzzed. Text from Jessica. "Lunch is running long. Won't be home until dinner." "Speak of the devil," I said, showing Miles the message. "Perfect. That gives us time to do some reconnaissance." "Reconnaissance?" "We're going to pay a visit to Mr. Victor Sloan's wellness center. See what kind of operation he's really running." The Mindful Body Wellness Center occupied a converted Victorian house on Elm Street, painted in soothing earth tones and surrounded by carefully maintained gardens. A small sign by the front door advertised yoga, meditation, life coaching, and relationship counseling. "Looks legitimate," I said as we sat in Miles's car across the street. So did Bernie Madoff's office. Appearances can be deceiving. We watched as a steady stream of people went in and out. Mostly women, mostly middle-aged, mostly wearing the kind of expensive workout clothes that suggested they had money to spend on whatever Victor was selling. "There," Miles said, pointing. "Red Audi." Victor's car was parked behind the building, barely visible from the street. As we watched, a woman emerged from the back entrance, looked around nervously, and hurried to a silver Mercedes. "Interesting," Miles muttered. "Back door exits for the special clients." "Should we go in?" "Not yet. I want to see who else shows up." We didn't have to wait long. At exactly 2 o'clock, Jessica's BMW pulled into the parking lot. She sat in the car for a moment, checking her appearance in the mirror, then walked to the back entrance and disappeared inside.
Lunch with the girl's my foot, I said. At least she's punctual.
We waited another hour, watching the comings and goings. I recognized several faces, women from the neighborhood, wives of men I knew from various social functions. All of them used the back entrance. "This is bigger than just Jessica," I said. "He's got half the neighborhood's wives coming here." The question is what he's doing with them. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Paige Chen's number. "Answer it," Miles said. "Act normal." "Hi, Paige." "Dan, how are you holding up?" Her voice had that fake concern that women use when they're fishing for gossip. "Holding up? I'm fine. Why wouldn't I be?" "Oh, you know, with everything that's going on." "I'm not sure what you mean." There was a pause. "Haven't you and Jessica talked yet?" "About what?" "Dan, I assumed Nina would have told you what Mindy heard." "Nina mentioned something about Jessica working late a lot. Is there something else I should know?" Another pause, longer this time. "Maybe I should let Jessica explain." "Explain what, Paige?" "I really think this should come from her, Dan. I don't want to get in the middle of anything." "You called me, remember?" "I know, Look, maybe we could all sit down and talk. You and Jessica, me and Mike. Clear the air." "Is Mike available? I thought he was traveling a lot for work these days." "He is, but... Wait, how did you know that?" "Gotcha. Lucky guess. When do you want to meet?" "How about tonight? We could come over after dinner." "Sure. I'll mention it to Jessica when she gets home from her lunch with you and Mindy." "Her lunch with..." "Dan, I haven't seen Jessica today. I thought she was working." And there it was. Paige Chen, neighborhood gossip and concerned friend, had just revealed she had no idea where Jessica really was. "My mistake," I said. "I must have misunderstood. See you tonight." I hung up and looked at Miles. Paige isn't behind the anonymous messages. She's as clueless as I was. "Then who?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. "Having fun playing detective? Check your email." This time, the video was different. It showed Victor and Jessica, but they weren't alone. There was a third person in the room, a man with a camera, clearly recording everything. And at the end of the video, Victor looked directly at the camera and said, "Make sure Dan Hart gets a copy of this. It's time he knew what his wife is really worth." At the screen, feeling pieces of the puzzle click into place. "Miles," I said slowly, "I don't think Jessica is Victor's only victim. I think she's his partner." "What do you mean?" "The photos, the ratings, the systematic approach to everything. What if she's not just cheating? What if she's helping him run some kind of blackmail operation?" Miles was quiet for a moment, processing the implications. That would explain the anonymous messages. Someone's trying to expose them both. Or someone's trying to use me to do their dirty work. My phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed Jessica's number. "Dan? Thank God you answered. I need your help." Expelled. Vice was different. Scared. Panicked. Not the confident woman who'd left for her fake lunch date. "What's wrong?" "I can't explain over the phone. Can you meet me somewhere? Somewhere private? Where are you? The lot at Miller's Park. Dan, please. I think I'm in trouble. The line went dead. I looked at Miles, who had heard enough of the conversation to understand what was happening. It's a trap, he said. Probably, but what if it's not? What if she really is in trouble? Then she brought it on herself. He was right, of course. But 20 years of marriage doesn't disappear just because your wife turns out to be a lying, cheating criminal. Some part of me still felt responsible for her safety. I have to go. Then I'm coming with you. Dan, your wife is mixed up with some dangerous people. You're not going anywhere alone. I looked at the evidence spread across my kitchen counter. Proof of betrayal, deception, and God knew what else. This morning, I'd been a clueless husband. Now, I was apparently a player in someone else's game. Time to find out what the rules were, and whether I was strong enough to play by them. Miller's Park was deserted except for a few joggers and dog walkers. Jessica's BMW sat alone in the far corner of the parking lot, engine running. As we approached in Miles's car, I could see her silhouette in the driver's seat. Head down, shoulders shaking. She looks genuinely upset, I said. Or she's a better actress than we thought. Mills parked 20 feet away, positioning his car for a quick exit if needed. Remember, Dan, whatever she tells you, don't believe it until we can verify it. I nodded and got out, walking slowly toward Jessica's car. She looked up as I approached, and I was shocked by her appearance. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled, and there were what looked like finger marks on her wrist. She rolled down the window. Thank God you came. What happened to you? Get in, please. I can't talk about this out in the open. I hesitated, then opened the passenger door and slid in beside her. Up close, I could see she'd been crying. Real tears, not the crocodile variety she used when she wanted something. Dan, I've made some terrible mistakes. That's one way to put it. About Victor. Unless I know about a lot of things, Jessica. The question is, which ones you're willing to admit to? She was quiet for a moment, staring at her hands. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. It started as just an affair. I was bored, feeling trapped. Victor was exciting, different. He made me feel alive again. And then he started asking me to do things. Small things at first. Introduce him to other women, share information about their marriages, their finances. Information for what? He said he was helping them. Relationship counseling, he called it. But Dan, I think he was recording everything. All the sessions, all the private conversations. I thought about the video I'd received. The way Victor had looked directly at the camera. Blackmail? I think so. And I think I helped him without realizing it. What about the other men? The photos in your overnight bag? She looked genuinely confused. What photos? And showed her the picture of Mike Chen. This photo, with your handwriting on the back. Dan, I didn't write that. I've never seen that photo before. It was in your overnight bag, hidden in our closet. What overnight bag? Dan, I don't have an overnight bag. Either she was telling the truth, or she was the best liar I'd ever met. Given recent events, both seemed equally possible. Jessica, someone's been sending me videos of you and Victor. Anonymous messages. Threats. What kind of threats? The kind that suggest you've made some dangerous enemies. She started crying again, harder this time. Dan, I think Victor's been using me, setting me up for something. This morning, after our appointment, he showed me some photos. Pictures of you, of the kids. He said he knew everything about our family, our finances, our routines. What did he want? Access to your computer, your work files. He said some of your clients had information he needed. That stopped me cold. My freelance work included several local businesses, including the bank where Paige's friend worked. The same bank where Victor had been making suspicious deposits. What kind of information? I don't know. But Dan, when I refused to help him, he got angry. Really angry. He grabbed me, said I didn't have a choice anymore. She showed me her wrist, where the finger marks were clearly visible. He said if I didn't cooperate, he'd send those videos to everyone we know. Our friends, our neighbors, your clients. He'd destroy our lives. I sat back in the seat, trying to process everything. If Jessica was telling the truth, then we were both victims of Victor's scheme. If she was lying, then this was all an elaborate setup to get me to do exactly what Victor wanted. Why should I believe you? Because I'm telling you the truth. For the first time in months, I'm telling you the complete truth. The complete truth? Jessica, you've been cheating on me for months. You've been lying to my face, to our children. You've been rating your conquests like they're restaurants on Yelp. And now you want me to believe you're the victim? I know how it looks. Do you? Do you really? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my wife has been living a double life. And now that it's catching up with her, she wants me to bail her out. Dan, please. I know I've hurt you. I know I've destroyed our marriage. But right now, Victor is the bigger threat. To both of us. My phone buzzed. Text message from the unknown number. Time's up. Check your email. I opened my email app and found a new message with multiple video attachments. The subject line read, "The complete collection." "What is it?" Jessica asked. I clicked on the first video. It showed Jessica and Victor, but this time, they were clearly in Victor's office at the wellness center, and they were discussing specific plans to blackmail several neighborhood wives. "Jesus," I muttered. "What?" I showed her the phone. Her face went from white to green. "Dan, I never said those things. That's not me. It looks like you. It sounds like you. It's fake. It has to be. Deep fake technology. You can make anyone appear to say anything." She was right, of course. The technology existed. But the videos looked real, and the Jessica on screen was discussing details only the real Jessica would know. My phone rang. The electronically distorted voice again. "Enjoying the show, Dan? What do you want?" "I want you to stop Victor Sloan, and I want you to make your wife pay for what she's done." "Who are you?" "Someone who's been hurt by their operation. Someone who wants justice." "What operation?" "Victor and Jessica have been running a blackmail scheme for months, targeting wealthy wives, recording their affairs, then extorting money from their husbands. Your wife is his partner, not his victim." I looked at Jessica, who was shaking her head frantically. "That's not true," she whispered. "Prove it," I said into the phone. "Check the trunk of your wife's car." The line went dead. Jessica and I stared at each other for a long moment. "Dan, whatever's in there, I didn't put it there. Then you won't mind if we look." We got out of the car. Jessica's hands were shaking as she opened the trunk. Inside was a metal briefcase I'd never seen before. Jessica backed away from it like it might explode. "I've never seen that before in my life." I opened the case. Inside were stacks of cash, dozens of photos of various men and women in compromising positions, and a ledger documenting payments received and services rendered. At the bottom of the case was a handwritten note. "Dan Hart is getting suspicious. Time to move to Plan B." Floring's handwriting was unmistakably Jessica's. I looked up at my wife, my lying, cheating, criminal wife, and felt something inside me break. Not my heart this time. That had broken hours ago. This was something deeper. My faith in my own judgment. My ability to trust anyone ever again. "Jessica," I said quietly, "I want you to get back in your car. I want you to drive away. And I want you to never, ever contact me or our children again. Dan, please, go. Now. Before I do something we'll both regret." She got back in her car, tears streaming down her face. As she drove away, I pulled out my phone and called Miles. "It's time," I said when he answered. "Time for what?" "Time to destroy them both." Because if there's one thing 20 years of marriage had taught me, it was this. When someone betrays you completely, utterly, and without remorse, you don't get mad. You get even. The plan came together over the next 3 days like pieces of a puzzle I'd been unconsciously solving for months. Miles provided the tactical expertise. Nina provided the tech support. That kid knew more about social media than most marketing executives. And I provided the motivation. Because nothing motivates a man quite like discovering his entire life has been a lie. "You sure about this, Dad?" Nina asked as she set up the live stream equipment in our living room. "Once we do this, there's no taking it back." "I'm sure. Your mother made her choices. Now she gets to live with the consequences." Looked up from his video game. Are you really going to ruin Mom's life? No, son. I'm going to reveal the life she's already been living. There's a difference. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. No elaborate schemes, no illegal activities, no violence. Just the truth, delivered in the most public and humiliating way possible. The annual Briarwood block party was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. Every family in the neighborhood would be there, along with local business owners, city council members, and various other pillars of the community. It was the perfect venue for what I had in mind. Friday night, I made my final preparations. The evidence was organized, the presentation was ready, and the live stream was set to broadcast on every social media platform Nina could access. Miles had positioned himself strategically around the neighborhood, ready to document whatever happened next. Jessica had been staying at Victor's place since our confrontation at the park. She'd tried calling several times, but I'd blocked her number. According to Nina's intelligence network, teenage girls are better than the CIA when it comes to gathering information. Jessica was telling everyone that I'd gone crazy with jealousy and was making wild accusations. Perfect. Let her think she was safe. Saturday arrived with perfect weather, sunny, warm, with just enough breeze to keep the crowd comfortable. The block party was in full swing by noon, with families spread across Miller's Park, kids running around with face paint, and adults clustering around picnic tables loaded with potluck dishes. I arrived at exactly 2 o'clock, carrying a laptop bag and wearing my best smile. Nina and Tyler flanked me like bodyguards, both of them nervous but determined to see this through. "There's Mom," Tyler said, pointing toward the pavilion where Jessica stood with Victor and several other couples. "Perfect. Right where I want her." I made my way to the small stage that had been set up for the afternoon's entertainment. A local band, some kids' performances, and the traditional neighborhood awards ceremony. The current mayor was wrapping up his speech about community values and supporting local businesses. "Excuse me, Mayor Davidson," I said, stepping up to the microphone. "Could I have just a few minutes? I have something important to share with the community." Marshall, the mayor, looked confused but stepped aside. The crowd quieted down, sensing something unusual was about to happen. "Good afternoon, everyone," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system. "For those who don't know me, I'm Dan Hart. I live over on Maple Street with my wife Jessica and our 2 kids. I gestured toward Nina and Tyler, who waved awkwardly at the crowd. I wanted to take a moment to talk about something that affects all of us. Trust in our community, in our businesses, and in our relationships. I could see Jessica pushing through the crowd, her face pale with growing alarm. Victor was right behind her, looking like he wanted to bolt. You see, I recently discovered that some members of our community have been taking advantage of that trust, using it to manipulate, exploit, and blackmail their neighbors. "Dan, what are you doing?" Jessica called out, but her voice was lost in the murmur of the crowd. I opened my laptop and connected it to the sound system. "I think it's important that everyone see what I've discovered. Nina, start the live stream." Nina held up her phone, broadcasting everything to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube simultaneously. "This is Victor Sloan," I said, clicking to the first slide of my presentation. His professional headshot filled the portable screen that had been set up for the band. He runs the Mindful Body Wellness Center on Elm Street. Many of you know him. Some of you have even used his services. I clicked to the next slide, a photo of Victor's business license, which I'd obtained from public records. What you might not know is that Mr. Sloan has been using his business to run a sophisticated blackmail operation, targeting the wives of wealthy men in our community. The crowd was completely silent now, everyone straining to hear and see. He would seduce married women, record their encounters, and then extort money from their husbands to keep the videos private. I clicked to the next slide, bank records showing Victor's suspicious deposits, obtained through Miles's contact at the bank. But Victor didn't work alone. He had a partner, someone who helped him identify targets, gather personal information, and coordinate the blackmail schemes. Jessica was pushing desperately through the crowd now, Victor right behind her. But Miles appeared from nowhere, blocking their path with his considerable bulk. "That partner," I said, clicking to the final slide, "was my wife, Jessica Hart. They showed Jessica and Victor together in what was clearly a planning session. Documents spread between them on a table. It was one of the legitimate photos from the anonymous sender, but I'd cropped it carefully to show only the evidence of their collaboration. Jessica used her position as a real estate agent to access personal information about potential targets. She identified vulnerable women, introduced them to Victor, and helped coordinate the blackmail schemes that followed. "That's not true," Jessica screamed from the crowd. "Dan's lost his mind. He's making this up." "Really?" I said into the microphone. "Then perhaps you can explain this." I played one of the audio recordings I'd extracted from the videos. Jessica's voice clearly discussing payment schedules and target selection with Victor. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. I could see people pulling out their phones, recording everything, sharing it in real time across social media. "Stop this," Victor shouted, finally breaking free from Miles and rushing toward the stage. "This is harassment. This is defamation." "Is it?" I asked calmly. "Then I'm sure you won't mind explaining these financial records to the police." I nodded to Miles, who pulled out his phone and made a call. Within minutes, I could hear sirens in the distance. "You see, Victor, I've spent the last 3 days sharing all of this evidence with the authorities. The FBI is very interested in your interstate banking activities. The IRS wants to discuss your unreported income. And the local police have several arrest warrants with your name on them." Victor's face went from red to white in about 2 seconds. He looked around desperately, realizing he was surrounded by hundreds of people, all of them recording his every move. "And Jessica," I continued, turning to face my wife directly, "I've filed for divorce. I've documented every asset, every account, every piece of property. You'll be lucky to get supervised visitation with the kids after this." "Dan, please," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I can explain everything. I'm sure you can. But I'm done listening to your explanations." Cars arrived then, pulling into the park with lights flashing. Detective Sarah Martinez, whom I'd been working with all week, stepped out of the lead car and walked directly toward Victor. "Victor Sloan, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and extortion." As they handcuffed Victor, Jessica made one last desperate attempt to reach me. But the crowd had turned against her completely, forming a human barrier between us. "This isn't over, Dan," she screamed as Detective Martinez approached her with a second set of handcuffs. "You can't destroy me like this." "I'm not destroying you, Jessica," I said into the microphone, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent park. "I'm just showing everyone who you really are." As the police led both of them away, the crowd began to disperse, buzzing with excitement and shock. Several people approached me to shake my hand or offer support. Others pulled out their phones to check social media, where the live stream was already going viral. Nina hugged me tightly. "Dad, you were amazing." Fleming, "Thanks, sweetheart. But this is just the beginning. We're going to have to deal with a lot of attention over the next few weeks." "Are you okay with that?" I looked around the park, at the neighbors who had watched my wife get arrested, at the community that would never look at our family the same way again. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was honest. Finally, completely honest. "Yeah," I said, "I think I am." Miles appeared at my elbow, grinning like a man who'd just won the lottery. "Well," he said, "that was satisfying." "It was, wasn't it? What's next?" Closed my laptop and unplugged it from the sound system. The mayor was trying to restore some sense of normalcy to the block party, but people were still clustering in small groups, rehashing what they'd just witnessed. Next, I'm going to take my kids home. I'm going to order pizza, and I'm going to start figuring out what our new life looks like. Sounds like a plan. As we walked back toward the car, Tyler fell into step beside me. "Dad?" "Yeah? That was pretty awesome." "Language, Tyler." "Shall. Sorry, but it was." Ruffled his hair, feeling lighter than I had in months. The marriage was over, the lies were exposed, and the people who had betrayed me were facing the consequences of their actions. It wasn't the ending I'd wanted for my story, but it was the ending I'd earned. And sometimes, that's enough. 3 months later, Jessica was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison for her role in the blackmail scheme. Victor got 5 years. Their operation had affected dozens of families across 3 states, making it a federal case. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks after that. Jessica got nothing. The prenup I'd insisted on 20 years earlier turned out to be the best investment I'd ever made. Mina and Tyler adjusted better than I'd expected. Kids are resilient, and they'd seen enough of their mother's behavior to understand that the divorce was inevitable. I started dating again, carefully, slowly, with the help of a very thorough background check service Miles recommended. And every morning, I made coffee in my kitchen and looked at that crack in the marble countertop. It was still there, still spreading, slowly. But somehow, it didn't bother me anymore. Some cracks, I'd learned, just make things more interesting.